All right there. Hi, everyone. My name is Natalia Willett-Grice, and I am the owner of LCO Law. And on today's discussion, I have Jacob Cannon. Jacob Cannon is kind of an expert when it comes to health insurance. And why are we talking about health insurance? Because this is one of the biggest and also most worthwhile investments that you can make in your business, in your family, and in your employees. So Jacob has been a licensed healthcare agent for 9 years now. After college, he had a real desire to go work in a place in a way that helped people. And so he pursued this as a career. And what better way to help individuals than talking about life-saving care and how to achieve that life-saving care and how to ensure that you actually get it. He saw that there's so much confusion out there in the market regarding health insurance, especially, with everything that changed with the Healthcare Act. And he found that becoming an agent would really bring some peace and clarity, get rid of some of those misconceptions that are out there about health insurance coverage. He spent many, many years helping small business owners and the self-employed in all of their health insurance needs. And Jacob just has a passion for this. He's one of the few, if not maybe the only healthcare agent that I know, to actually sit there and talk to you about explaining your EOBs, talking about how you can get a billing mistake fixed, and just going over things that most agents don't spend the time doing. And then Jacob's not just a machine. In his free time, he enjoys spending time with his sons, Tucker and Cooper. And you're also into keeping in shape. You like strength training, playing basketball. So Jacob, without further ado, tell us a little bit about you and your company.
Well, thank you so much for that introduction. So yeah, I've been a licensed health insurance agent since 2014. I spent many years with a company that was exclusively helping small business owners, like you said, people that are self-employed, and I enjoyed that very much. And in the last couple of years, I've kind of ventured out to still be able to help those people. But now I'm able to help virtually anybody in any situation by being a broker and being an independent agent, which I'm very excited about to be able to, again, help them and not have to refer them to somebody else. That's a little bit about, a little bit about my career. And personally, like you said, I love spending time with my sons, playing basketball with them, playing Uno with them. But yeah, I very much enjoy what I do for a living. There's been so much misunderstanding, confusion for many different reasons when it comes to health insurance. So I love being able to be that reputable person that somebody knows to be able to walk through whatever questions they have, whether they need a new policy, they don't need a new policy, they just need, just policy review information. I love being able to sit down with people and just genuinely help them, which is why I love what I do.
So, let's say somebody, realizes, oh my God, this is something that I have been putting off. I want to get done. I want to get coverage. What is the best way for them to contact you? Like, what's your email? What's your phone number? How can they get a hold of you?
My direct cell phone number is 813-841-7546. That's the best way to reach me. I'm usually on the phone with clients throughout the day. So text messages are usually easier. And most people prefer texting in general. So just sending me a text, and my email address is yourhealthagentjacob@gmail.com. And yeah, that's the best way to reach me.
Nice. All right, so let's get started talking about some of these issues that impact people that are business owners or independent contractors, right? Which is like they're their own little micro business. Right. Let's start talking with what are some of the healthcare options that exist out there for them, and what are some of the ones where they should tread carefully if they hear about a special kind of plan? Let's see your word on this.
So, just brainstorming and thinking about what we're going to be talking about. I think the most important thing when it comes to making a decision regarding your health insurance, there's a few key things that I listed, but the first thing is working with a reputable, knowledgeable, and experienced agent. I know that these days, most people want to do everything through Amazon. They want to do everything without having to talk to a human being. But unfortunately, from what I've seen for health insurance, this is really something that you just have to get used to. because there's so much when you try to do it all by yourself, it just has led to so much confusion down the road because people don't really know what they're doing.
Mhm.
Um, and again, like you said, they select plans that maybe look good on a website, but they don't understand the details of them. They're not licensed agents, so they don't know what they're looking for. So the most important thing is working with somebody who knows what they're doing. And I know this is tough because there's a lot of salespeople out there. There's a lot of people that are only looking to push one option.
Mhm.
And since people aren't knowledgeable, of what's out there in the marketplace, sometimes they get taken advantage of, and so they don't want to talk to a salesperson. But my advice is to be able to find that person. That's for a number of reasons. Number one is that the industry has changed over time since I've even been in it.
Mhm.
Um, when I first got into it, people wanted to sit down and talk with somebody, but over time, people just wanted to do everything on their own. Um, and nowadays, people just go online, usually last minute, so because they know a deadline's coming up, and they don't know what EOB means, they don't know what PPO, HMO, EPO, POS,
Mhm.
uh, they don't know what tiers of prescriptions means, they don't know what coinsurance is, copays, what applies to a deductible. This is all foreign language to them.
Mhm.
But they look at it and they say, well, it's Blue Cross Blue Shield or it's Humana, and I had that through my previous employer years ago, so it must be a good option, is the way that they kind of rationalize it in their head, and they select it only to find out that they don't get the coverage that they thought they were going to. Um, so working with somebody that can walk them through these and make sure they understand what they're getting, I'd say is one of the most important things. And as a small business owner or you're self-employed, or even if you're not, if you have a job or you're a working parent,
Mhm.
the last thing that you want to do is get into a health insurance plan. And then 3 months down the road, you file a claim, you find out it's denied. And now you have to take time out of your day away from your business or away from your family to call Blue Cross Blue Shield or whoever it might be. Now you're on hold for 45 minutes trying to figure out why is this claim being denied. Nobody's giving you answers, and then your call gets dropped, and then you have to call back in again and re-explain it to somebody else, and you're just getting frustrated at that point. Whereas an insurance agent, they should be able to be your liaison and take care of those things for you, so that way you can get back to doing what's important to you. um, some plans, I would definitely say do your research. Um, do your research, look into all of the plans. Don't take somebody's word for it. You need to see it in black and white.
So
If even if
true.
you're talking to me, I send the documents to a prospective client or whoever needs help with anything. I send them that black and white information because these days, yeah, you really shouldn't take somebody's word for it just because they said it. The plans are in writing for a reason. Uh,
Mhm.
they have to cover what they say they're going to cover, and they don't have to cover what they don't say. Some plans that I would be probably cautious of if you're a small business owner or really anybody in general is cost sharing programs. Cost sharing programs, sometimes they're faith based or religious based. Sometimes they're not. They just come as a more affordable option to
Mhm.
insurance. But with these, there's a lot of limitations, a lot of exclusions. They don't have to cover pre-existing conditions, which they're not going to come outright and say that. It's in the fine print, which you have to read, which
Mhm.
I help with, whenever I'm going through a policy with somebody. Um, and also, they're not obligated to pay any medical bills at all, even if it is a new claim or a new condition, which is scary. I don't want to be
Right.
I don't want to pay $400 a month for my family for 3 years, and then I get lung cancer or breast cancer, if I'm, or whatever condition it might be, just for them to come back and say, hey, we don't have to cover it. It's
Right.
like, what do you mean you don't have to cover it? And legally speaking, they don't have to. It's in the fine print, but a lot of people don't read the fine print. So I would be very cautious of cost sharing programs. Even faith-based religious programs, I would be cautious of and just read the fine print.
Yeah. I mean, good advice because, right, there's sometimes too much trust in the wrong kind of thing, like too much trust in that little tiny screen that you see when you're like in the ACA platform or in a private non-ACA compliant platform. They give you very small summaries as to what
Right.
they're supposed to do for you.
Right.
But in reality, right, you open up the thing, you look through the exclusions, and it's a completely different world than
Right.
you may have expected. So it really is so important that if you don't understand any of that language, and unless you've been in the healthcare industry for years, you're not going to understand a lot of that terminology. To have a healthcare agent that can actually sit there and go through that with you. And that's one of the other aspects of why I brought you in, because you're one of the few that will actually take the time to go and make those calls to see why something was denied. And the amount of cost savings that is for a business owner is incredible. I mean, an hour of a business owner's time on the phone trying to get something resolved versus an hour of a business owner's time having sales conversations with prospective clients or engaging in marketing for, like, huge difference. So having a healthcare agent is an asset for an entity. So let's talk about
And if I could real quick,
yeah, go ahead.
all agents, they can do this free of charge, and we're supposed to be doing this, or at least they should be doing this as an agent, for your clients. But a lot of people don't. So again, when looking for, how do I find an agent out there that's trustworthy? How do I even go about that? I want to. I understand what you're saying. So how do I do that? I would ask friends and family. Who do you use? How long have you used them? Do you trust them? Have they been good to you? Maybe if you don't have friends or family that are self-employed, or maybe they don't use an agent, asking, there's a lot of Facebook groups where people will go on there and they'll say, hey, don't use this person. No way. Or you should use this person. Get in touch with a business networking group or a chamber of commerce, and just ask questions. How long have you been in business? How long, what are you passionate about, for helping your clients? What separates you from the people that just sell a policy? What do you do extra for your clients? And if they can't answer those questions, then you're probably talking to somebody who's either inexperienced, or they're just a salesperson that's trying to push a plan. And I wouldn't choose to do business with them myself.
Yeah, right. It's like you want a professional advisor, and health insurance is just as important as life insurance, as the person that you contract to help you with your tax planning, the person that you contract to help you with estate planning, right? It is essential to have somebody that truly cares and that really understands the niche, right? And how it's going to impact you, how it's going to impact your family.
Right.
So one of the things that you brought up at a recent conversation was regarding all of the mistakes that you've seen in these, like, invoices and explanation of benefits. So let's go over some of those, right? Because a lot of people are like, think that they get this bill and that's it. Like that's gospel and we have to do this. But that's not necessarily the case. So tell us about it.
So this isn't anything new. This has been happening my whole career, and I'm sure it was happening even before that. But definitely more so now. No matter what health insurance company you're with, it all kind of works the same. You go to a provider or a doctor's office, an urgent care, a hospital, whatever it might be. You show them your insurance card, and then you leave. And then maybe a week or two later, you get a bill in the mail.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times it's a surprise. It's like, well, that's not what I thought it was going to be. Mm-hmm. And this can be extremely frustrating. Well, immediately, a lot of people think the insurance didn't cover it. What am I paying all this money every single month for if the insurance, isn't going to pay for it? And I get this with Blue Cross Blue Shield, Humana, private plans. I mean, any company out there, it's kind of the same. And, our conversation was basically, my experience anyway, is that roughly 50 to 80% of all medical bills that people receive contain errors and are incorrect. And you don't have to pay whatever's on that paper immediately. And this is for a lot of reasons. Usually it's because the claim that was submitted, you go to the doctor is going to take your insurance information. They're going to contact your provider, verify your benefits, and submit a claim to the insurance. But what tends to happen is there's a few different things. So either the claim gets filed and the doctor's office, maybe they typed in your zip code wrong. Maybe they switched a couple digits, or maybe they spelled your name wrong. I have a client who is foreign. She has a very tough first name to pronounce. very tough to spell. And so that was her situation. Was she called me and she said, "Hey, I got a bill in the mail. I thought this was supposed to be covered like we talked about."
Mhm.
And I said, okay, let me contact the doctor's office first. And I go through a checklist, as to like what it might be as to why it got denied. And it was the very first one, which was the spelling of her first name. The provider's office just messed it up. And that's why the insurance company didn't recognize it, because it's not their client.
Right.
It's not their name. It's all done electronically. So it's not like people are actually looking at this
Mhm.
information.
Mhm.
So it just came up as void, or however error, however it shows up on their report, and it got kicked back. To which she just got the bill sent to her, and that was a very easy fix. That was just a matter of calling the doctor's office and saying, "Hey, the claim didn't get processed because the name was incorrect," which they verified was accurate. And of course, once they resubmitted it, she got her copay, and it got reprocessed, and everything worked out and got resolved. Um, so that's one common thing that happens. Another one is, I would recommend that people verify when you receive an invoice in the mail. Um, you're supposed to receive an explanation of benefits, which is the insurance company's basically
Yep.
receipt showing you, hey, this is what we're contracted and obligated to pay, and here's proof showing that we paid what we said we were going to based on the plan that you selected.
Mhm.
A lot of people will call me. I had somebody this past week who called me and said, "Hey, I have this bill in the mail." And I said, "Did you receive an EOB, explanation of benefits, from the insurance company?" "No, I haven't gotten anything from the insurance company." "Okay, well, that's a problem. That means that something probably happened."
Something
And
needs
come
to
to
be
find
filed. Yeah.
out, the
Mhm.
claim hadn't even gotten filed, with the insurance company yet. The provider just sent the medical bill before even
Mhm.
processing it. So I said, just give it a couple weeks and let the insurance company process and do their due diligence and pay what they're going to pay. So we just waited, 2 weeks, and sure enough, they paid what they were going to pay, and then the client received another bill, which was the amount that they were supposed to pay, which was significantly less, and which was, on the plan document
Mhm.
that they selected.
It's also a good way to kind of like make people aware of how efficient and effective their healthcare provider is at interacting with the health insurance companies, right? Because different businesses have
Right.
different ways of operating, and you want to work with a physician who's got a good billing department,
Most definitely.
one that's effective, one that checks those things, right? That's updated with all of the changes in billing and coding and that, but that does it promptly so that you don't end up getting those weirdly timed invoices and then think, oh, I owe this much. And that's happened to me where it's like I got the invoice and I'm like, okay, I cut the check, da 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 da. And then I end up getting like 3, 4 checks from my insurance company in the mail because they ended up processing them later. And they're like, no, 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 you're owed all this back. This is
Right.
not, correct. So
And sometimes if it's a smaller bill, if it's just a doctor's office visit of $75 or $80, most people, they see that and they're frustrated because they thought, well, I thought my insurance company was going to pay some of this,
right.
but it's small enough where they'll just pay it, and not even think anything about it. Where, again, I mean, every dollar adds up. So if the insurance company said it's a $20 copay, I wouldn't just brush it off and say, well, it's whatever. I'll just pay the $80 and just be done with it, because that's money that, is owed to you. It's the insurance company is going to pay that. And but again, sometimes people they just don't want to deal with it. They have other things to do. They don't, and again, these things that we're talking about, this is stuff that your insurance agent should be doing the majority of, on your behalf. So people are thinking, man, I don't have time to take, to be looking at codes and EOBs and, doing all this stuff. Again, your insurance agent should be following up with you to get the documents that they need. They're talking to the insurance company, where you really don't have to be involved a ton in this. But again, that comes down to working with, a proper agent.
Yeah. And part of the beauty of it is like, if you do work with the right agent, somebody like you that will make sure to check those things, to follow up with your insurance company and with the healthcare providers, it's like you have an in-house team member that's like your healthcare specialist for the business too.
Right.
It's amazing because hey, it's covered through the premium, right? You don't charge a separate fee to do this. This is part of your service as a healthcare agent.
Right.
Yeah. So
And
go ahead.
well, and over time, and this is my experience is, when you have that relationship with an agent, situations in your life are going to change. As you get older, you're going to develop a condition that maybe your previous plan you didn't need a copay for, but now that you've aged a little bit, now maybe you have high blood pressure, you have diabetes, maybe you got cancer, whatever it might be, or maybe you got pregnant, like whatever it might be, having an insurance agent to be able to go back and say, hey, this is my situation. Is this plan still good? Should we consider looking at something else? That's something that, again, that they can go through with you, because your situation is going to change. And if you have a business, maybe it starts growing. Now you have employees, so does it make sense for everybody to have their own plan? Should we do a group plan? That's something that you really shouldn't have to navigate, on your own. You should really talk to somebody that's experienced that can walk you through that.
Nice. So let me ask you, what are some of like the most recent changes, let's say in the past couple of years, that maybe employers haven't noticed and should be aware of, or individuals as well? Like, what are some of the things that you're like, whoa, this is like a really good reason to revisit what you thought was a good plan, or these are some of the changes that maybe could be impacting your family, or prospective changes that you see are coming down the line?
Right. I would say in the last few years, there's been a lot of private companies that had really great options for, and I'll talk specifically to the self-employed and small business owners right now. Maybe under five employees. That's who I'm kind of talking to right now. For those people, there was alternative companies to the marketplace or the Affordable Care Act, and they made sense for a long time. But in the last few years, there have been options come up that, in my opinion, are better. Again, again, maybe not at face value. Somebody looks at it and they're like, oh, well, that doesn't really make sense, and then just put it aside. But when you look at the details of the plan, for somebody that's self-employed, it actually makes a lot more sense to do, in my opinion, a short-term plan. The reason I say this is, years ago, short-term plans, I didn't usually recommend them because there were options for longer term. So just say I'm self-employed, I own my own painting company, and I do pretty well for myself, but it's just me. The short-term plans, they were only like between a month to 6 months. After that, you would have to renew. So if at that time you developed a medical condition, then they wouldn't renew your plan. And if you're outside open enrollment, that left you kind of hanging without insurance. And so I didn't really recommend those plans for a long time, unless it was somebody that just needed insurance for 90 days until their new insurance kicked in at their new job. But in the last few years, these short-term plans, I don't even know if I would call them short-term anymore, because you can get a term up to 3 years.
Wow.
So for somebody, again, 3 years, that in a decade, that means you only have to renew 3 times. So, and these plans are really geared towards, again, people that they want to be able to tailor their insurance. So a lot of plans are customizable these days. You don't have to get pregnancy. You can get it. You can get a copay. You can not get a copay. And so I'd say short-term plans have come a long way. And again, I didn't recommend them before. And a lot of those alternative companies that I used to recommend, I don't necessarily anymore, only because they haven't really caught up. I feel like they kind of they're still the same plans that they were 5 years ago, and prices are going up on them. And the prices for short-term plans are super competitive. But again, I go through the different details of the plan just to make sure that it makes sense for that particular, individual. That's the first one. Is short-term plans have come a long way. The future of them, I'm not sure where it's going to go. That's something I just kind of keep tabs on. With group plans, because I've been getting this question lately, my experience anyway is that for a business owner, I talked to somebody the other day, and it's usually this dynamic. It's a husband and wife. They own, just say, a forklifting business. They have their son and daughter-in-law that work for them as the
administrative people.
Yeah,
Yeah.
correct. And then their 18-year-old grandson, who kind of just does maintenance or something around there. And so they'll call me and say, hey, we have these employees. People are kind of doing their own thing. This person doesn't have insurance, but we'd like to offer benefits, so we'd like to look into a group plan. And from my experience anyway, if it's a small business like that, it's usually more cost effective to do individual plans. Sometimes it's not, but generally speaking, I've seen it's more cost effective and better for the employees individually to do individual plans for their families because they're at different stages of life. Somebody might not, again, unless the employer is paying the full amount,
Mhm.
if an 18-year-old is responsible for making their own payment, they usually want the most affordable thing possible because maybe they don't see that they don't feel like they need insurance. And so I'm able to find them something that fits them. And then maybe you have a 26-year-old that plans to get pregnant. Well, I can get a plan that's customized to them. And then again, maybe somebody, they're 62 years old, they're just trying to get something until they can get to Medicare. And so I can find them like a 3-year plan that makes sense for them. And overall, I found that to be a better solution than a group plan because group plans, they just tend to be more expensive. They're pretty cookie cutter. And so usually when it's like 10 or 15 employees, that's when I start looking and weighing the pros and cons of group plans and talking to each person individually to kind of get their idea of what they want with their insurance and just
Mhm.
trying to make sure everybody's happy.
Yeah, and that's a really great point because I think too often, when you start a business, you instantly think like if I want to offer insurance to my, employees, then I have to go with group coverage. But there's so many other options out there. And the reality is that it can be quite affordable to offer healthcare coverage through the business to your employees, even if it's through individual plans. But that way you're getting a benefit out there to them. And you're really certainly beating out the competition of other small business owners in terms of attracting and retaining good labor.
Right. And a lot of people, once they hit a certain age, the only reason that I talk to a lot of people, the only reason they have their job is for the benefits.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A lot of people that work, I talk to a lot of people that work at maybe like a Lowe's or a Home Depot. They just work enough hours to, again, be able to have their health insurance. And they'll talk to me and say, yeah, if you can get me something better, I'll quit the job. That's really the only reason I have it, to be honest. Um, and people, you'd be surprised. Again, as long as you're talking to somebody that's reputable, who works independently where they can offer, a multitude of different companies. Yeah, you'd be surprised at, how affordable insurance can be. But if you're doing it all yourself and you're just going on to one website, then yeah, you're going to see, $1,500 a month for my family. And it's like, well, I might as well just not even have insurance, but there are definitely more affordable alternatives out there for them, for individuals, families, and employees as well.
Yeah. All right. So, Jacob, thank you so much. Do you have any other nuggets that maybe we haven't covered that you think are really important for our audience to hear?
Um, the only other thing that I wanted to add was that on top of having, again, a knowledgeable insurance agent, I would I wouldn't be quick as a consumer to make a decision when it comes to your health insurance. If you have to, because there's a deadline, it is what it is, but I would try to plan and work with somebody and give yourself enough time so that way you can weigh pros and cons. You can express your frustrations with your previous plan instead of just picking a plan because it's last minute just to be frustrated 6 months from now and go through the whole thing all over again. I would plan to have enough time. And I know that nobody wants to talk about health insurance. Nobody wants to talk about it. It's just kind of just that necessary evil that but it is something that you should take however long you need to make sure that you have all your questions answered. You understand exactly what you have. My goal is that, again, when I talk to somebody, they have a general idea of what they have because 6 months from now they're not going to remember most of what I was saying to them. But they have a general understanding of why their insurance plan works for them and it just as a full a full picture. And I'll give you one example. I had a gentleman again who he called me and he said, hey, it was last minute, and he said, hey, I want a plan that has a copay. I need to have a plan that has a copay. And I was able to kind of calm him down for a second and say, hey, we have a couple days to think about this. So I just want to ask you a couple more questions. So why do you need a copay? Well, my previous company, that plan had a copay, and I'm just used to having a copay. And I said, okay, that's fine. How often do you go to the doctor? And he said, sheesh, I probably only go maybe once or twice a year. I'm like, okay. And there's a plan right here. It's $20, it's a $20 copay,
Mhm.
and the price is $250 more per month than if you get a plan that doesn't have a copay, but you have to pay out of pocket. And then I'll call the doctor's office. Doctor's office charges maybe $100 for a doctor visit. And so I'm able to, again, this is why you need to don't make a decision super last minute. Take some time because an insurance agent will go over this with you. But I was able to explain to him, hey, why don't you pick this? Why don't we go with this plan? It's $250 less a month, $3,000 a year. And instead of having a $20 copay, you have to pay $80 more the 2 times that you go per year. Doesn't
Right.
that make more
That's
sense
a huge
financially for
savings.
you?
Yeah.
And so he was able to do that. And so again, when you have enough time, you can look at questions like that and weigh out what makes sense for me financially. So that way you're not incurring all these costs. So that's the last point that I wanted to make, was just give yourself enough time. Don't rush through the process. Don't be pressured into the process by anybody. And take control of your decision making for your health insurance.
Perfectly said. All right, everyone, this is Jacob Cannon again. And Jacob, let's have that phone number and your email address again.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's 813-841-7546. And it's your YOUR health agent Jacob, your health agent Jacob at gmail.com.
Perfect. Wonderful. Thank you, Jacob, for coming along. And thank you all for watching.